Hi, so this could be a bit of a rant or a ramble. Today I've been feeling very despairing. Of what I'm witnessing online, anyway, in leftist, so-called leftist circles. And I'm seeing basically that the fake left, the blue ticks, the Democratic Party supporters, this is in the US, the fake left is much more unified than the real left, the anti-imperialists, the anti-capitalists, the against discriminations of all kinds, except the speciesism, unfortunately. I've seen the fake left is way more unified in their message and everything else. And that shows me, and particularly, I'm just going to mention some brief things that I've witnessed. I'm going to show you a little bit too of something that happened today on the Jimmy Dore show, which in many ways confirms really what I've been thinking about him and that show for some time.
Again, that's more bullshit. And now I'm going to show you, so now you know the whole story, that Kyle Rittenhouse was chased. Actually, the evidence presented now looks like it was self-defense, 100%. And he was out there putting out fires in dumpsters and cleaning up graffiti. And he didn't carry the gun across state lines. And also all this stuff. And the people he shot were white, and they were all attacking him. Everybody he shot was attacking him.
And I'm sorry if you're a Jimmy Dore supporter. I used to be one, but now it's just like, what the fuck is what I can say, all I can say to that. But I feel like at this point, if this is how the real left, and I don't really include Jimmy Dore in that anymore anyway, he's been on his way out for some time, but the real left, how we're going to end up losing to the fascists, basically. And that's coming overtly now in 2024, whether it be Donald Trump, which is very likely, or it will be a competent fascist, someone who is much more eloquent than Donald Trump. That doesn't take much to be more eloquent than Donald Trump, and they have it more together than Donald Trump. But it's going to be overt, and it's coming in 2024. Not that it's not here now. There's fascism all over the place now. Different forms and different levels of it. All the 14 defining characteristics of fascism are showing in different countries, in the West anyway. And in the United States, it's well and truly on its way and has been happening for some time. Anyway, today I saw this, well, basically, if you watch the Kyle Rittenhouse, that's he was 17 and he murdered 2 unarmed protesters, and I've done a couple of videos on that at the time when it was happening, watching in real time. And, he left his own home state to go to Kenosha in another state, and then be an Antifa hunting, little Hitler, basically, and sort of go ahead, and he sort of murdered activists that were actually trying to stop him after he murdered one of the protesters there. And then he murdered another protester that was trying to stop him, an unarmed protester. Well, that particular Kyle Rittenhouse, now Jimmy Dore is defending him and being an apologist for him. The Jimmy Dore show. And, he's been sort of grifting to the right now for some time with the anti-vaxxer stuff, claiming he's not an anti-vaxxer, but bringing in Max Blumenthal, this is another example of the left failing hard. Max Blumenthal being an anti-vaxxer and, interviewing adjunct, economic professors about vaccines, doing totally non-journalistic type work and just pushing the anti-vax thing to the max, ignoring the fact that vaccines keep people out of ICU. And he and Jimmy Dore are as thick as thieves when it comes to that message. And he was suggesting, Max Blumenthal suggesting people take monoclonal antibodies. That's about $2,100 worth of something that is from Big Pharma, the irony of that, and yet telling people to reject the free vaccine, that kind of shit. So, it's sad. So there's other things that Jimmy Dore's been doing that has been a grift to the right. I noticed it pretty big when he was pushing Tulsi Gabbard. And then when Tulsi Gabbard is she is full on right in the right wing now. Full on. She's also defending Carl Rittenhouse. She's been shitting on Muslims and basically painting them all as terrorists. Still pushing the war on terror and all of that. She's doing an early campaign run to run for president again. I'm pretty sure of that. And so she's grifting hard to the right, big time. And she's probably always had these right-wing positions, but she was trying to see if she could do okay on the left. This is all speculation, by the way, on my part, but I'm not a journalist. I can do that. I think she tried out the left. It didn't work out, and now she's really being what she always was: homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, all of that. So Jimmy Dore was defending her, and she was also pro-Israel, pro-apartheid Israel. And Jimmy Dore ignored that, and he kept pushing Tulsi Gabbard, promoting her. And when she sort of came out and was promoting Biden, he looked all sad about it, but he never has called her out on any of these other awful right-wing narratives that she's been putting out since he said he was disappointed in her. That's the harshest speech he's had about her, was that he was disappointed or something. And he's never really called her out on any other fucking thing she's been putting out on Twitter, these right-wing things. I mean, she's scary at this point. I find her scary. She may even be the competent fascist that people have been talking about in the end. I'm not joking when I say that, when I see how she is these days. She also seems to think that this, I don't know, she doesn't even seem to support this, any of the good measures in the Build Back Better, which is a pathetic attempt at giving away now to corporations and ignoring the people who need it, the public. She's not even really supportive of public, of social support anymore. Even Sean Hannity on his program said, it's hard to believe you were once a Democratic Party person. You're a real conservative. That's what Sean Hannity said about Tulsi Gabbard just recently. And then we've got that sort of grifty stuff that I've just mentioned. There's other people too. There's I'm sorry, I'm just going to name names really because I'm really over it. There's Jackson Hinkle, who's shitting on identity politics, even though, identity politics is not what the Democratic Party presented at. They present a weaponized version of identity politics that has no real, is nothing real about the way the Democratic Party pushed that. And yet Jackson Hinkle is kind of, and some other people that I don't consider leftists, that are really, sort of just grifters, like, what's his name, Infrared. He's actually kind of, in some ways, joining up with Infrared, who is a racist who's been taunting Luna Oy, that Vietnamese communist. He's been, sort of saying racist stuff to, this is Infrared, has been saying racist stuff to Luna Oy, and Jackson Hinkle seems to be sort of real buddies with that guy. And Jackson Hinkle's been shitting on ID politics. And he was did a debate with Andrea, I think her name's Andrea Voronsky, who's a trans woman. He's basically, pretending that he's basically saying that identity politics is that, there's no room for it. It's not part of Marxist-Leninist, sort of a Marxist-Leninist position. And Andrea Voronsky was saying, you can't be a class reductionist. Class and race cannot be, they're inextricably linked, and, the intersectionality of issues. Well, he doesn't want to know about that. And isn't it interesting? It's always mostly white, cis, heterosexual men who are pushing against and shitting on identity politics. The irony of that. Mostly white men. Like Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore shits on identity politics. Who else does it? I think Infrared. There is a bunch of white cisgender men. Carla Marpin, who's another one who's grifting heavily to the right, who's pushing patriotic socialism, as if there's such a thing. This is what Jackson Hinkle is doing, patriotic socialism. He's pushing that. He says he has great pride in the American flag, a flag basically that is drenched in blood. And we were going to do, Didi and I were going to do a live stream about that, and also about a couple of other things about trans issues. We were going to do 3 different live streams, and then I got so despairing about the every day it's some fucking shit show that's happening. and I'm going to mention this at the present time, but I'm not going to say much about it, but this status quo, the removal of Jen Dyes, this unceremonial removal of Jen Dyes as co-founder that Jordan Chariton has done, and he's not being transparent about it. I pushed him privately in a Twitter group DM and on the Discord, the private members Discord, and it seems like I'm one of the few people that's actually challenging him on that. Everybody else is falling in line with that narrative, this very feeble narrative that's put out. I mean, if you trust a co-founder that you founded Status Quo on, and then when they say, she said she was leaving, and so he said on the advice of his lawyer, he locked her out of all the platforms and removed her as a co-founder and business founder. And she was flailing around on Twitter asking people what the fuck has happened. Well, that doesn't sound like the way to treat a best friend. It doesn't sound like he gave her any heads up about that. It just seems like maybe he got in the shit. Maybe he thought she was going to, do something with the files or take the email list. That doesn't sound like a trust that he has for that other co-founding member, somebody he calls his friend. And somehow we're supposed to, and this is something I had to push him on to actually reveal that, but still didn't make any sense. And there's all these people, these supporters just falling in with this feeble narrative. And this is why the left is going to fail, because it's this cult-like following that these journalists have, that these fucking celebrities have, that it doesn't matter what, comedians like Jimmy Dore, if you've ever been on his fucking live stream, it's like a right-wing cesspool, and there's no moderation. People can just say whatever the fuck they want. They can be as awful as they want, transphobic, racist. It's just awful. Anybody who's got any leftist sensibilities wouldn't want to be within cooey of that live stream. And it's all because, the more people you have commenting, the more money you make, the more profit you make. That's why, I imagine that's why he doesn't censor his live stream. He can't be bothered having moderators there, and the more people who comment, even if it's an awful racist, transphobic and whatever, and right-wing conspiracy live stream, that's just fine with Jimmy Dore. And when you see how hard he's been grifting now to the right, it's not surprising. And I wouldn't be surprised if he made a business decision to go this way. Maybe he sees the writing on the wall in 2024 and he thinks, well, may as well get on board now, because it's going to be some sort of fascist shit show in the United States when Trump gets in, or when a competent fascist gets in, so may as well get on board and I'll still be pulling in the money. Who fucking knows? I don't even know how these people think anymore. I mean, it's really hard to know who to trust anymore. And I love, Empire Files, and they've probably been one of the only leftist outlets that I know of that is not doing some sort of a grift. But they're too busy working on their Earth's Greatest Enemy documentary to be able to they're not really paying attention to what's going on, and maybe that's a blessing for them to not have to watch this. Although I have to make one criticism of Earth's Greatest Enemy, and that is this: I feel they're going to be highlighting Indigenous people and the unfortunate fact that they can't hunt and kill animals anymore because they've been poisoned by environmental devastation caused by mostly the US military up in Alaska. And that, to me, being a vegan, I don't think upholding and putting on a pedestal people. I don't care if it's some sort of tradition. There are lots of traditions that are really unfortunate that have been in human history. Lots of traditions that we don't praise anymore. And I don't think murdering animals, I don't think particularly today when it's not necessary to do that. Even if it ever was necessary, it certainly isn't now, because it's not like Alaska, it's not like that island where these indigenous people are on, these Inuits. I can't remember their particular traditional tribal name. It's not like they're so remote that they can't get food, can't have food drop-offs like anybody else. There's so many places now that import food. They have the U.S. military on that island. If the U.S. military are there, they can bring in. They're not going around hunting for food. They just import it in. I don't fetishize these traditions that excusing killing sentient animals. I don't. So I'm kind of disappointed that there's going to probably be an Earth's Greatest Enemy, a kind of for want of a better word, a sort of a promotion of how sad it is that Indigenous people can't hunt these animals because they're all poisoned and filled with toxins, and they're actually dying and not being able to reproduce, and therefore there's not enough of them, and indigenous people on that island, I forget the name of it, are having to leave. I don't think there's anything to feel great, to be sad about, that people can't be killing animals, particularly when the US Army lives on that actual island, and they obviously import and bring in food and stuff. So it's not like they're in some remote planet and they can't, the only food source there is other sentient animals. I mean, it's not like that. Today, everybody has most places in the world pretty much have some way of bringing in. Look at Antarctica. They have people having food brought to them, dropped off all the time. That's a remote place. So anyway, there's all these different things. I'm just finding the whole thing now so, I'm so despairing, basically. I mean, that's a small thing that's something with Empire Files, but the one thing that's very good about them is they've never been grifting. They have quality journalism. And I think Abby Martin's the real deal. I think Mike Prison's the real deal. And I continue to support them. I think they're doing great and important work. They're anti-imperialist. That's a very important thing to me. But I'm just disappointed in that sort of non-vegan kind of position, that speciesist position. I don't think it belongs in, even if you can get the implied message without making a deal about it, making a big deal and kind of going, if only they could hunt and kill those animals and they weren't poisoned. What about the animals that are fucking poisoned there? Isn't their lives valid? Isn't their lives important? Shouldn't we be upset that these sentient animals are being poisoned by us once again and being driven out and driven to extinction? We shouldn't just be sad because we can't fucking kill them and eat them, for fuck's sake. That's my point. We don't seem to have any acknowledgement of these sentient animals, that they have a right to be able to live on the planet they were born on, just like we do. And this is where speciesism and all these discriminations are all related. Because the way we treat the most vulnerable sentient beings on the planet, non-human animals, is exactly now the way we're treating human beings. If we can, exploit and kill and drown and trap and drive into extinction the most vulnerable species, sentient beings on the planet, we can do that sort of shit to anybody. Anybody at all. And this is what we're seeing now. I'm seeing now this cancer spreading throughout the so-called left. All these various journalists that I once highly respected, that I promoted on this channel, and ones that I haven't, but that I've been watching and seeing how they're slowly grifting to the right or shitting on ID politics, because that's the thing to do when you're a white YouTube influencer that is supposedly leftist. What you do is that you find that grifting to the right is actually profitable. I've mentioned this before. They click into it. Every time they say something that is right-wingy, they're rewarded. It's almost like a Pavlov's dog thing. They say something grifty. They say something that's anti-identity politics. Something, by the way, that Ajama Baraka has said that he's criticized this in the foreword of that American Exceptionalism, American Innocence, that book by Denny Hayfong and David Servant. He said in the foreword that this is sort of like they're using sort of class reductionist stuff, and also the weaponized version of ID politics that the Democratic Party, they're using all those excuses so that they can dump and abandon any race, any minority groups, basically, trans people and so forth. They're using that. That is what I see a lot of white, so-called, particularly cisgendered, heterosexual men. This is what I see them doing. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's a cancer that's spreading. It really is. And by the time we get to 2024, and this amazes me, that people aren't fucking freaking out and planning what to do when Trump gets in 2024, or a competent fascist gets in, somebody who is eloquent and really knows how to do it. Trump is bumbling around and stuff with his but he was really revving it up toward the end there, particularly when he was bragging about knocking off, getting police to go and execute Michael Reynolds, bragging about it, how it was done in 15 minutes. That's the kind of talk he was doing just before his term in office was ended. And he's going to continue on and escalate that. He's going to accelerate the social breakdown. He's going to take away social programs. He's going to make any BLM protests an act of terrorism. He's going to give police more and more powers that they can probably go out and execute people just like Michael Reynolds without trial and then brag about it. Just all the kinds of things that you would expect fucking, Hitler-esque type, people to do. And, he's not an aberration. He's the end result of all the beginnings of that country in the U.S. empire. This has been leading up to this since the commencement of that country and the settler colonial patriarchal capitalist project they had. It's like a business plan that started off, and it's been going ever since. This has been all leading up to that. Settler colonialism and capitalism and imperialism. It's all together. I mean, probably Max Blumenthal has been the most disappointing of all of this. Jimmy Dore tends to just find flaming issues to kind of be dramatic about. He's been very good on some things. He's been very good on imperialist stuff, anti-imperialist stuff, but he picks different things. He sees an interest in something that's dramatic, and then he just goes with it. So, I mean, that's kind of in keeping, except that I've never seen him grifting so hard to the right as he has done in the last year or so. And the live stream is just, it's scary, his live streams. I mean, the live stream chat, sorry. So anyway, it's just, Shadowproof is a good journalist channel. I'm almost reluctant now to even promote any journalists anymore, because it seems like every time I do, something happens. There are some good, I still think at this point in time, even though they sort of seem to be reluctant to embrace veganism, which is really a progressive issue, and it's about non-violence and justice. But Luna Oi and Non-Compete are really, they're communist, and they do great videos, and they seem to have a grip on how to organize and how to be leftist. And speaking of people who push communist things, I mean, then there was the Fred Hampton leftists who did a similar thing to what Status Quo did and just unceremoniously removed a founder. At least, though, they had the decency to do a live stream and do a mea culpa moment, which is what I've been encouraging Jordan Chariton to do, but he is going to stick to this feeble story that he had to be pushed to even give anything at all from it, which is very disappointing, and I do not feel as enthusiastic at all about him and that particular channel. Fortunately, Jen Dyes is going on to do her own thing, her own journalist stuff. But I mean, the total thing was a dodgy shit show, the way she was just locked out of everything, and she's going around. She wrote to me personally and said, what does this mean? Why have I been locked out of Status Quo? She's a co-founder. So that doesn't sound like the actions of someone who Jordan says is a good friend and she's the co-founder and stuff. It doesn't sound like the actions of someone who trusts. But, Fred Hampton leftists, they did a live stream immediately after that co-founder was removed. They did a mea culpa moment. And when people do mea culpa moments, you can kind of respect that, because it's hard to actually say that you're wrong, isn't it? I mean, it's a hard thing to do, to admit that you've messed up, that you fucked up. But it's a smart thing to do, because it also endears you to people, because, when you show vulnerability and honesty, that endears you to people too, to most people. So, Jordan Chariton could have done that. I'm going to wait and see how it plays out. I wasn't going to make a comment today, but I'm just talking about the shit show, the griftiness, the cult-like thing. I mean, this is the thing. This is the thing that I'm so disturbed about too, is the cult-like fashion to which supporters of these different channels, they get so cult-like that when some of these people who they've celebritized and put on a pedestal, when they start moving to the right, they go with them. They go with them. They don't. And you think, what kind of leftists were they ever, when they can just go along and with the grift? And then if anybody who's an actual leftist criticizes them, that leftist who is critical of that particular journalist, high-profile journalist, or that particular leftist outlet, or whatever, is oftentimes just dumped upon and blocked and banned and muted and vilified and driven out and demeaned and trolled by other members of the group. That cult-like behavior that I see everywhere now on the left. Every single, like the Jimmy Dore show is a supreme example of the cult-like following he has there. You only have to look at the chat. 30%, I mean, when Jackson Hinkle was debating Andrea Voronsky, she's a trans woman, she said she could see his comment section, and he has moderators, by the way. She could see 30% of the comments were incredibly transphobic. And was there any moderation happening? Apparently not. That's what I mean by he is also, I see him as a grifter, grifting to the right. And also with this patriotic socialism, which is just such BS. And that's something Didi and I were going to talk about in a live stream soon. We were going to talk about that, this phenomena of patriotic socialism, which is just really American exceptionalism wrapped up in this kind of socialist, with this little socialist veneer. It's really just, that's what it is. So, that's happening. This sort of murking up of and American exceptionalism blanket over socialism. That's what Caleb Marpin is doing. That's what Jackson Hinkle is doing. That's what that fake leftist infrared. There's a whole bunch of different ones now, and they all happen to be white, cisgendered, heterosexual males. How interesting. I find that interesting. It sure is a patriarchy. You can really see it, even on the so-called left. Not that I consider infrared any kind of leftist, I don't. When you're mocking and saying racist stuff to a Vietnamese communist woman, no. Okay, so the cult sort of behavior, the herd mentality that goes with that, is going to be the left's undoing. Like I say, the fake left is unified. They totally on board anytime the fourth estate, the corporate media put out a narrative, usually CIA, US national security state talking points. You get the fake left all getting on board with that and unified, and they defend it to the hilt. And on the left, we just have this schmozzle of a shit show with grifting to the right and cult-like behavior and followers who cannot think independently, can't stand up against anything, can't call out anything. And if they do, they're shat on by the group. This is herd stuff, herd mentality. The herd mentality of people, the groupthink, is going to be our undoing and is leading us to extinction, basically. I mean, the herd mentality is what keeps people from demeaning and trolling vegans when we talk about ending our exploitation and killing 1 to 3 trillion land and aquatic animals every year, and how that is not only violence and unjust, but it's also destroying the planet, it's a huge contributor to the climate crisis. And oftentimes you'll just get people, either they'll be like crickets or they will be trolling you. If we were to go on in another 100 years, that would be looked upon very unfavorably. And I get trolled when I bring this up, when I bring veganism up on a live stream in an appropriate manner to something that's being said. I get trolled, and it's not going to be, that's going to be looked upon very badly in years to come when veganism has really taken hold. And it will, except that we're probably going to go extinct before there's a vegan planet, and that makes me sad. But then if it means that this violent species that just doesn't seem to be able to find its way out of a paper bag, if that means that we end first before we get a vegan planet, so be it. That's fine with me. I don't want to see people suffering. I'm not a misanthropist, but I think if this is the sort of shit show we're going to have, then we deserve to go extinct. If this is what it's like, even on the left, the cult-like grifty and just sycophants, without being able to stand up for anything, without being able to critically think, instead of having this knee-jerk bullshit reaction anytime a vegan opens their mouth, because we have cognitive dissonance, can't, la 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 la, can't stand it, don't want to think about it, shut the fuck up and go away so we don't have to do anything. We'll just keep you over there, shut up, shut the fuck up. That's what they're doing. That's what the left is mostly doing to vegans. Crickets or shut the fuck up. I can't even get the communists and the socialists to even give it any sort of credence, any airtime at all. Excuses upon feeble excuses, all because people want to sit down and eat their 3 meals a day, their fucking animal flesh and their secretions and their little fucking ova, their little eggs and whatever. And yet we're all calling out about injustice and violence. I mean, seriously, if it wasn't, it'd be funny if it wasn't so fucking sad. So that's not even something that even other people who might be most people that are, dismayed with what's been going on in the so-called left, they haven't even thought about that aspect yet. Try being a vegan and watching all this. Seriously. I've been so despairing about this lately. It hasn't made me really feel very inspired to talk about anything. Apart from the fact that, look at the shit show going on with the Biden administration, which we always expected would be the case. But when I see, these people with huge amount, like almost 1 million followers, like Jimmy Dore, making apologies for that murderous little fascist that murdered those 2 unarmed people, and he's making excuses. If it wasn't bad enough listening to his non-stop anti-vaxxer bullshit, drumming up, whipping up people into vaccine hesitancy, particularly when the global south can't get vaccines. And his accomplice, Max Blumenthal. What a disappointment that guy is. Christ. Even when I see him and their faces now, it just, it makes me angry. Because they're doing so much fucking damage, and look at the fucking followings they have. I don't know, it's like a cancer, it's like a disease that's spreading. And by the time it gets to 2024, it's going to be, we're barely going to have any functional left, basically. Except for maybe the likes of Luna Oi and maybe Empire Files and Non-Compete. There's probably some other ones. I'm sure there's other ones I'm not aware of, but I'm aware of a number of places that might be okay, but, it is not looking good at all. It is not looking good at all. I don't know if this is what happens when people feel like we're all doomed, that we're actually we're going to go extinct, and they just think, fuck it, I'm just going to go, and I'm going to go where the money is, I'm going to go where it's most profitable, and that means grifting to the right. I don't know if that's what's going on. I really don't. I thought that maybe the left could get a little bit organized now that Trump's out of office, but it seems like it's almost like because there's nothing dramatic happening with Biden, he's just doing all these awful things, but it's all kind of under the radar. He's not dramatic like Trump, and so it's like this slow news day for people, and they start finding things to be dramatic about, and they can see it, and they can see from the analytics in their YouTube channel that vaccine stuff is something to really go for, and other, and this Rittenhouse thing, Jimmy Dore's decided to go for that too, because that'll bring in a lot of right-wingers, and they'll say, yeah, Jimmy, that's right. He's the hero in this. He is being vilified. He really was just defending himself against those violent Antifa terrorists. Wait until Trump gets in again. We'll fix that. We'll fix them. Trump's promised that he'll fix them. He even lumps Joe Biden in with, it calls Joe Biden a communist. I mean, wow, you know, this is the permanent lie we have going here. You can say anything now, and it's a lie, and it just floats by, nobody cares. Lies upon lies upon lies. And as, you know, somebody who I find I have a real problem with that. I really value truth and honesty. I really value honesty. And so it is very disturbing to me to just see the lies upon lies upon lies, and it all just floats by, and most people don't care. And most people can do the most shitful things in front of, leftist audiences, and it's just goes by, and it's just fine. And nobody seems to have they have amnesia about the past, and it's like nobody remembers anything, nobody cares about anything, and that's why the left is going to lose. And here comes fascism.